Welcome to the Sanity podcast. My name is A.R. Hoffman, and each week, along with my co-host Rebecca Sugar, we speak to the people that you want to hear from. Our guest this week is Commissioner Ray Kelly. The commissioner has over 50 years in public service, including 45 years of service in the New York Police Department. He's a world leader in law enforcement, CEO of the Guardian Group now, and the longest serving police commissioner in the city's history. 14 years across multiple administrations. So really no better person to speak to about all things Gotham. So Commissioner Kelly, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Let me ask you, just as we sit here on the eve of the election, you know, Mayor Ed Koch famously used to say, "How am I doing?" Right? So, how's the city doing? What is the status quo? And then maybe as a way of getting into, what could happen after the election. But right now, right this minute, how do you think things are in the city?
Yeah, I think things are uncertain. People are nervous. They don't know what's going to happen as a result of this election. There's still a lot of crime in the city. I hired Jessica Tisch many years ago, and she's terrific, and she is doing a great job and will continue to do it, in my opinion. But we still have a ways to go. I think you could say that the crime is going in the right direction, but it still has a significant way to go. It is higher than it was pre-COVID pandemic. So I think the leadership that Jessica gives and the people that she'll add to her team will do a good job in fighting crime. There are a lot of strange things that the city council did through the years, restricting what police officers can do. Strange things like if you're arresting somebody, you can't put pressure on their back. I never see anybody who doesn't want to be arrested and it's going to let you do that. I mean, just silly things like that have been kind of heaped on the police department during the last 8 years. And that's something that she's going to have to contend with. We don't know what the city council will look like, but every year it seems to get more radical and more to the left. We'll have to see how that all comes down. And of course, if Mamdani is elected mayor, the relationship that he and she will have would be very, very significant.
And you've said in recent, well, one, just full disclosure, you've endorsed Governor Cuomo for the mayor's race, as have we. You've also said that you see the possibility of police officers leaving if Mamdani wins. Can you talk a little bit more about what effect you think it would have on the force?
Well, that's what's going on now. They're still leaving in high numbers, and I would submit that we don't know why they're leaving. One of the things I recommended, not that anybody's listening anymore, but to have a say McKinsey and Company. I used them when I was in the police department on several occasions. Have them do the exit interviews as police officers leave. That you don't want a law enforcement consulting group. You want them to feel comfortable as much as possible to tell you why. Why are they leaving? We really don't know. It's a little bit of a lemming effect. The people are leaving, then more people are leaving. But it's not clear. Now I know from spending some time in Florida that there are a lot of New York City cops being hired in Florida and other southern states. It's much nicer environment. The benefits are pretty much just as good. So that's why I suggest that consulting group. And let's get something that we can hang our hat on and then try to address if we can.
I just on that point, I did a program called the Citizens Police Academy years ago, where they take people from each district and you meet with the heads of the departments of all the departments in the.
I put that in
You
place.
put
It was
that
my
together?
idea.
Well, thank you. It was, by the way, I recommend it to everyone. It was one of the most interesting things I've ever done, and it really gives you an inside view of what happens in each of the departments of in our NYPD. One of the departments that I really knew very little about was the emotionally distressed persons department. So I didn't really appreciate the degree to which our officers are really trained in dealing with mentally ill people on the streets, which sort of leads me to this question about our likely next mayor, Zoran Mamdani, and his push to replace officers with social workers to deal with mentally ill. It feels to me like we already have police officers who are skilled in dealing with such people when they are committing crimes or before they commit crimes. What's your take on Mamdani's plan to replace police officers or have them joined by social workers, and what do you think the impact of that will be?
It's not going to work because it hasn't worked anywhere. I was in that unit, emergency service unit. Now, they are all trained as emergency psychological technicians. They get an awful lot of training. They get a year's training, basically, and they do a terrific job. They handle about 125,000 of these assignments every year. And as I say, I was in that unit, and you go to these jobs, EDPs as they're called, and they can turn on a dime. They can get very vicious. They do things like I saw this once job. It was a man standing on a table naked with a lie. He cooked a lie to throw it on the police. The police put on raincoats, I mean, it was so cool. I had just gone into the unit, and it was just very, very impressive. But the reason that it doesn't work is that the mental health workers are concerned about their own safety with good reason. So they want the muscle to be there, and it should be there. And so they have refused to do this. We did it at Kings County Hospital, this is years ago, and they just wouldn't go on the assignments. So it shows to me that they haven't done very much research in putting that forward. He also said that he wanted this new department that he started, that is community safety, to be $1 billion unit organization. So in other words, he's picking out the price before he's telling us what they're going to do. A little strange way to manage, but so it's very naive to think it's going to work. And it's, by the way, this is not a new concept. This has been tried in cities. Eugene, Oregon is the latest that they put out there. Memphis, places like that. It's just it's sort of a non-starter.
A lot of us, I think, certainly people who take the subway every day, encounter this particular mix of, obvious mental, psychosis, instability, and sometimes an overall environment, especially for women that can feel unsafe. I mean, do you feel like we know the formula of how to make the subway better? We're just not doing it, or how would you sort of attack specifically the subway issue, meaning mental health, homelessness, just regular crime?
Yeah, it's a deeper problem than just the subway. It goes back to the 70s when we deinstitutionalized a lot of people who, many of them needed treatment, in-house treatment. But a series of politicians have continued to reduce the beds that are available. Now, if the police bring somebody into a hospital for mental condition, generally speaking, they're out in 48 hours. Now, one of the reasons I'm told is that they don't get enough money. The hospitals don't get enough money to handle these people, so they're kind of pushing them out the door. I mean, that's an inside baseball story that somebody somebody told me. I can't verify it, but it sounds like it has a certain amount of credibility to it. I agree, it's a major issue, and I call it more. People say, and they're saying this Mamdani group is saying they only want the police to fight crime. Well, it's a lot more than crime of that. I call it disorder. You go down the subway and you see disorder. You walk down the street, you see a lot of disorder. So it's a complex problem. I think we do need, and actually, Mayor Adams did try to do some of this, put teams out and with police officers and others, health workers, but it just seems to drift away. I haven't heard of it going on or working, but there's no easy answer to it.
I think I want to ask you a question that might sound a little silly, but I'm curious for citizens in the streets. I already talked about how you feel, if you feel safe as a woman. There are certain streets I won't walk down at night alone anymore. And certainly the subway is a whole category into itself. I think citizens have a sense of safety, and it's mostly based on how they feel, right? But I'm wondering what the metrics are for law enforcement to evaluate whether or not we live in a safe city. We all talk about being safe. What does that actually mean? Are you measuring if we have a certain number of violent crimes or under, that's a safe city like in New York, or if it's a high number, it's not?
There's no metric for that I know. I think it's public perception and feeling. Like you know it when you see it. So that's not it's not we can accept this number of robberies, or if it's above that, then no. And so much of it is driven opinion. If you're a precinct commander, you don't necessarily show numbers to clients or residents. They come in and they complain, and you know about it. You know what street there's a problem on, and you have your own crime statistics too. So, it's not something that is as tangible as you might think it is. Yes, sir.
So, as NYPD commissioner, right, obviously you're a law enforcement official, but also a very important public figure who's working closely or not, as it may be, with the mayor. So a lot of the debate in this campaign has been, well, what makes a good mayor, right? And Cuomo says it's experience, and Mamdani says it's whatever, values or being part of a movement. Or in your experience working with mayors, sort of what were the most important qualities? What were the qualities that didn't work? When did you find that your relationship as police commissioner was the best with a mayor? And when maybe was there more more static in the relationship?
Well, I had a very good relationship with Mayor Bloomberg. I can never think of having any sort of friction with him, at least not directed at me. I had been in the department a long time, and I was the first deputy commissioner for a while. So the job was pretty comfortable for me. It wasn't like, and certainly I'm not going to do anything, and neither will Jessica Tisch, that's going to annoy the mayor, or you're not going to do it for long. I mean, it's the real world. But I never had any friction that I can recall.
Yeah. So Mamdani says, I'm going to keep Tish, but she's going to serve my program. That's what he said, right? What does that mean to you? I mean, does that make sense to you? Obviously, a commissioner serves at the pleasure of the mayor, but I'm just trying to get a handle on that very New York relationship of the police commissioner to the mayor.
Well, it means that Jessica Tisch is a very popular commissioner, and I mean he's reading those tea leaves, and sure he's going to say that. He didn't say I'm definitely going to give. I'm thinking of it or something like that. So I mean it's a to me it looks like a political move. He is against a lot of things that the police department is doing. They've already said that they're going to take, I guess, $600 million out of the police budget. The police have a $6 billion budget. So in order to fund this new community safety department, he's going to take $600 million from the police budget and tax for another 400 billion. Remember before I said he wants to have a $1 billion agency. So that's his plan. I don't think that's going to make any police commissioner particularly happy. I mean, still, I'm told that the hemorrhaging is ongoing. Will that stop with the new mayor and the police commissioner? I don't know, but they're still leaving.
I doubt you're going to comment on what Jessica Tisch should do or say, but if you were the police commissioner right now instead of Jessica Tisch and Zoran Mamdani had said that about you, what would have been your response, if any, and what would you do when he becomes mayor?
Well, you have to make a judgment. Can I live with this? And what is it going to do to my reputation? Jessica is a talented young person. She can have a future, a very good future in virtually anything she wants to do. So, and you have to, depending on what he asks or what he demands, you have to say, I can do that or I can't do that. And it's very hard to say now, of course.
Can I ask, just on another topic, how ready is New York for a cyber attack right now or a terrorist attack?
Well, two kind of different things, but um, I'm always concerned in the job and concerned now about a cyber attack or a terrorist attack. New York has 10 million people a day in it, in confines, coming from all over. There's no guarantees. And I think the department is doing the best it can. In the Bloomberg administration, we brought in a lot of expertise from the federal government, retirees. We seconded some people from CIA, and we really, we had been attacked twice. New York City. I mean, they had the largest police department in the country. It had a total of 54,000 people at one time, yet we were not warned on either one. So we kind of made up the decision that we have a lot of people. We've got to try to protect New York on our own as well. You can't rely on the federal government because we've gotten nothing from them up until then. So that's when we put together about 1,000-person counterterrorism unit. We increased our intelligence division. And as I say, we brought in people from the CIA, DIA, DEA, all of the FBI, all of the lettered agencies, under the notion that, they can learn ultimately from cops, but they're bringing whatever talents they have to the fight right away. And so that's why we did it. And I think it worked very well. During our watch, 12 years in Bloomberg, there were 16 plots against the city and none came to fruition. We were lucky, but we were also good. The FBI and the intelligence division of police department, we had an undercover program. David Cohn was somebody that I hired from the CIA, and I just talk to David once a week. Now he's a very bright guy, and we had an undercover program that was second to none. We would reach out to people of certain ethnicities who were on the eligible list meaning they took the police test, but they did nothing more. And we would approach those people and make an offer to them and see if they wanted to work in an undercover capacity. And it worked. And it was very effective.
What's the state of that program today? Do you know?
I'm sorry.
The state of that program today, do you know? Is
I
it
don't
still
know.
robust?
I don't know.
Let me ask you about on another and related front. I think many of us were appalled by the attack this week of the man wearing a yarmulke outside of the Midtown restaurant outside Mr. Broadway. You're someone who's really devoted energy and expertise to fighting anti-Semitism. Uh, where is that fight now? What worries you? How do you think things are developing there, especially in light of some of the more violent protests and other things we've seen, over the past 2 years?
Well, a couple of years ago, after I left the police department, Ronald Lauder, the president of the World Jewish Congress, asked me and a small team to do an examination of anti-Semitism in Europe. And I did that, and it was quite enlightening. It was everywhere. People were telling me that as high as it's ever been since World War II. What surprised me is certainly after October 7th, but how it became so public, so open. And thinking from my studies in Europe, I've said, okay, it's going on here, but in the U.S. it'll be much more sub rosa. It won't be that open. Well, it is, and it was, and it shocked me. It's a difficult thing to address. I think some of the basics are that at Jewish institutions they may have to spend some money and hire some armed security to protect them. We saw what happened in Washington D.C. and in front of the embassy, I guess it was. But it's much greater than I thought it would be, and much more open. And there is no magic answer to it, other than I think now the first thing to think about is physical protection. If you have employees or you have government people, I think you have to think hard about how you protect them.
The federal government, the Trump administration in particular, has been deploying the National Guard to cities around the country to help sort of deal with the crime problem where local law enforcement seems overwhelmed. Can you just give us your feeling about when and how it's appropriate to use federal resources to either assist or go in and do the job that the local law enforcement isn't doing? And I'm just sort of projecting forward when we have a Mayor Mamdani that we might need such assistance. And how do you feel about it generally?
Well, I wouldn't turn it down if it was offered to cities. Most cities have some crime problem. A lot of it is narrow as far as neighborhoods are concerned. It's not the whole city. It's maybe some locations that you do that, but I wouldn't. I wouldn't ask for it. If in fact it's being volunteered, hey, why not? But I don't. I would not go out of my way and say we need it here.
Just to piggyback off of Rebecca's question, Commissioner, there's a lot of thought about, the relationship between Washington and New York City, if Mamdani wins, but we already saw that in the Adams administration and the various interventions of the White House there. Add to that Trump, of course, is a New Yorker, has a lot of thoughts, lives here sometimes, and has a lot of thoughts about the city. When you were commissioner, did you ever have to deal with pressure from Washington? Was that something that was ever on your radar? Were you thinking about your relationship with the White House or with the DOJ or any of that? Or was it kind of somewhere at the edge of your radar?
Well, between my times as the commissioner twice, I'm sorry, I was Undersecretary of Treasury, so I had a lot of what I thought was good relationships with the federal government. There's always an issue, was always an issue with the FBI because you always felt that you weren't getting full information. And it's one of the reasons why in the Joint Terrorism Task Force, which is an FBI entity that has, I think, like 40 agencies, it's like kind of like a jug with the refrigerator magnets on it. They weren't part of the organization, but they were there if they were needed. It's one of the reasons that I increased the number of New York City detectives in the Joint Terrorism Task Force because it was a means of getting information and sort of getting around the fact that historically the FBI just holds on to information. I don't know. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, no,
No,
totally.
okay.
I think we're in for a bumpy ride.
I think so too.
So I'm just curious about all the video that is being collected and the data that is being collected on citizens who are walking through the city. I obviously understand the benefits of having them, but I'm sort of wondering, do you know where is all that data kept, all that footage, and for how long, and who's
when we were
accessing
putting
it?
these in, starting off with Lower Manhattan Security Initiative, which really was focused on the stock exchange area, and then of course it expanded tremendously. We met with what I'll call a privacy bar, and had an agreement that we would only keep videos for 30 days. And to the best of my knowledge, that's what's going on now. But what's also happened is we joined a lot of private sector videos. You see now, like so many of these assaults, you look at, Instagram or whatever, how do they get that picture? Usually it's from a private sector camera that the department has linked into. And they make it when the detectives respond to a assignment, to a job, that's one of the first things they do is look for cameras. And there is someplace an inventory of where cameras are private. Now the shooting of the hospital executive, Freeman, or his name,
United Healthcare.
no other department that I think could have traced the shooter to the what's it called, the hospital, not the place where he hung his hat. It was on 103rd Street. He was there, but they were able, because of the cameras that we have, trace him right to that location.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're amazing. They're tremendous assistance to the police, and also facial recognition. So let's see, how do they arrest that guy? One company that I know of has at least 2 billion.
We should just try to keep the
I'm sorry.
microphone closer.
Have 2 billion photographs of facial of people face on. So it's amazing what can be done with that. There are groups that are against facial recognition, and some cities have don't allow it in the police departments.
So those companies that have those 2 billion records of our faces are working in under contract for the NYPD?
Contract, yeah.
And so they keep that information.
Yeah, and there's a lot of focus on it from the plaintiffs' bar. They don't like it. It's unfair. But I mean, there's just a lot of monitoring of that whole system.
Okay.
Do you worry at all about, we're talking about sort of general crime and possibilities of enforcement under a new administration, but some of the more ideological kind of protests we've seen, things like have happened up at Columbia. I guess my question is that sort of disorder, like, what is the role of the NYPD in those kinds of events, campus events, things like that? And do you worry that with Mamdani as a possible mayor, who's broadly sympathetic to those not only causes but those manifestations of support, that there'll be some confusion in terms of how the NYPD responds?
Mm. Yeah, we'll have to see what that's all about. I mean, who is going to respond if it's not the police department? It's not the community safety people are not going to respond. As you can see, sometimes they get very violent.
Yeah.
You need police officers to do that. Now he wants to eliminate I forget the name of it. It's 3 letters. It's the entity that responds to disorder.
Uh-huh.
Okay, he's already talked about eliminating it. However, I think it's already eliminated. I think they just don't know. Eric Adams signed a consent decree where it limited it, and he said, "I don't think I should sign this, but they tell me to." And that's what he did. He signed this consent decree that does things like limit the number of police officers that you can assign to a demonstration.
Mhm.
It's kind of has to be like a fair fight, like
Yeah.
ridiculous. But I think that was agreed to, and just people have not paid attention to it. I have, and I don't know even if it's been implemented yet. But this agreement actually gives money to plaintiffs' attorneys. It's actually a pot of money for them to try to get if there's violations of this agreement. There's an oversight committee that has 6 people on it, only 1 from the police department, and they get briefed on the demonstrations. So, as I say, I think it's gone already, but they just don't know about it.
Mhm.
I'm almost tempted to ask, is there anything you can tell us that would make us feel better about the potential Zohran Mamdani win?
Look, we just don't know. We don't know what's in his head. He's not giving us very much information. We don't know
Well,
who.
I think we know some things. I mean, I think a lot of us were really, I was going to ask you about this, and maybe this is a good time, about this clip that's resurfaced of Mamdani saying 2 years ago that, the boot of the NYPD on your neck, the shoelaces were laced by the IDF.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of attitude, we're encountering.
Yeah, where's the connectivity between the IDF and the police department?
Wow.
And he said other things about you call the police department racist, biased. They cause crimes, not solving crimes. So he's not a fan.
Yeah.
And we're going to see how that manifests itself.
Yeah.
He did talk about defunding the police, and when he takes this money out of the police department budget, that's a significant defunding. He, 95% of the police budget is personnel. So if you're taking $600 million out of the police budget, that would translate to 4,000 police officers. So we don't know. This all has to be explained. It's very mysterious. He walks away from questions.
Doesn't sound like you have anything optimistic to say.
The mayor election gets the vast majority of the credit, right? But what about district attorney's office, right? We have an election for district attorney next year. How important is that role? Full disclosure, we've endorsed Maud Marin for district attorney.
We have it now. Next year, the election for DA is ongoing now.
Yeah.
Certainly in Manhattan. Yeah, and generally speaking, you've had a pretty warm relationship between police department, mostly detectives who interact with the district attorneys a lot, and the DAs. Obviously, that's not the case with Alvin Bragg. You
Yeah.
know, he has this reputation as being very, very soft on crime, and if you look at some of his statistics, he has more dismissals than convictions, and this it's kind of just topsy turvy when you look at the numbers from New York County District
I
Attorney.
will just say I haven't looked through all the questions, but we've already had 2 questions asking if you can convince your son Greg to run for mayor. Just did a few
He's smarter
cards.
than that.
I know if my dad told me to do something, I'd do the opposite. So maybe don't. We have a question about NYPD recruitment. I know something you've thought about. How do we get better candidates? How do we get more candidates? Is it a question of benefits? Is it a morale issue? How do we create that pipeline?
Yeah, as I said before, we need to sort of ferret out what is causing this hemorrhaging of police officers. It's got to be some policy decisions. But I know Adams, early on, he brought on a lot of people to high levels that should not have been in the police department. So you don't know with certainty what it is. I think it's we have to get more specific information as to why that happens in order to at least look at the possibility of addressing it. But there's still the information I have. I know they're claiming, "Oh no, the problem is over." No, the problem is still very much ongoing. And there are other departments. After George Floyd situation, cops left police departments throughout the country. So those gaps are still there. A lot of these departments are still hiring people and hiring people from here because they assume that they're trained. It cuts down on their training expense, that sort of thing. So we need more information.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up with that because I don't think too many people think that if Mamdani wins, that there'll be a surge of recruitment to the police department. There'll be quite the opposite. So could you give some recommendations to those of us who are not going to move to Florida and who are going to have to live in this city and navigate it? How do we keep ourselves safe if we can't depend on the police department to be able to keep us safe? Not that they don't want to, but they might not be able to.
Well,
Should we all
I'm
just
going
take
to
up
answer
arms?
that
What
in
should
a
we do?
backwards way. I don't think you should ever lower standards to recruit people, and that they're toying with that. Years ago, and I've been around a long time, we had a big class. I think it was in the early '70s or late '60s that did not get adequate background investigations. And for the next 10 years, like half of all disciplinary cases came from that class. So it's penny wise and pound foolish. You can, this cyclical, you can, as I say, seek out what the problem is and try to take it on directly. But, I don't think it's money. I don't think it's, and joining the police department is a little bit like a calling, It's not just a job. And that's not really what attracts people. And by the way, the money now in NYPD is pretty good. So it's not a question of, I want to go someplace with more money.
It's an interesting question, I think. Can you talk about the ways in which the world of organized crime has shifted? And our response during your time on the force, how does that fit into us changing New York? Is organized crime still a problem in the city? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's much less than it used to be. It basically is in gambling and carding, trash carding. They use a lot of muscle there, and they threaten shop owners, store owners to use their companies, that sort of thing. But it's really fallen off quite a bit. And there's still, in the NYPD, there used to be an Organized Crime Control Bureau. It's not there anymore because literally there's very little organized crime.
I think we've seen a lot of young people committing crimes, minors, in ways that I don't remember seeing decades ago. Do you have any sense of or feeling as to why we're seeing younger and younger people committing crimes, violent crimes?
Well, raise the age was legislation that was passed a few years ago, and a lot of people see that as a problem. It's now 18 to become treated as an adult. It was 16. So the people, organized or semi-organized people, are using individuals who are in that zone that would have been treated as a juvenile a few years ago. Now they see themselves going to family court, and family court is a much different environment, and it's very relaxed, the living room type approach, that sort of thing. So that's being exploited by drug dealers and others, having these young people do these crimes where normally, if they had gotten arrested, I shouldn't say normally, a few years ago, they would have been prosecuted as adults. That's seen as a problem now.
Kind of related to that, do you think the legalization of marijuana has been a good thing in New York City?
I don't. Marijuana has become much more powerful than it was, let's say, 15, 20 years ago. And it is still, and there's a 311 system where you call in offenses that are not quite crimes. Well, still, I believe, still at the top of the list is marijuana smoking, because it comes in your window. It's, you walk down by the stock exchange, the smell is all over the place. So I think the fact that it has gotten so much more potent is a problem. And Mayor de Blasio did a press conference when it held up a big bag of marijuana.
Yeah.
And it looked like it was at 20 pounds. Yeah, you can have this. Yeah, it's okay. You can have this. It's
It was probably his personal stash.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
You don't need to hear what I just said.
Let me ask, maybe we can wrap up on it. Do you know Andrew Cuomo? Do you like him?
I do.
Do you trust him?
Andrew is a transactional guy. He we went to the same high school, but I definitely went before him. Look, given the circumstances, this is what I believe we had to do, is to back him. And I don't know. He seemed to have after the primary, he seemed to just relax.
Yeah.
Something has spurred him on now, and but it was unusual to see that happen. He didn't shift right away to being independent. He just said he congratulated Mamdani, and lots of luck. Strange reaction.
But do you personally feel that he has any chance of winning?
I don't know. I don't think so. I hope he does, but I just don't. don't think so. I think he has a lot of talent. When you look at his resume, I mean, he's been, a cabinet secretary, he's been the governor, he's been a district attorney. So he certainly has a lot more experience than anybody else who even thought about running for mayor, except maybe Jim Walden, who was I think was a well-qualified guy.
Do you think Curtis Lewa should have pulled out of the race? And if he had, do you think that his numbers would have all gone to Cuomo?
I think it was pretty late to have that kind of switch of numbers. People are voting for Sliwa because of like ideological reasons, trying to send a message. But yeah, I mean, it would have been better off for him. I think he's gonna pay the price for staying in the race.
Commissioner Ray Kelly, I have a feeling that in the months and years ahead, a lot of people are going to be coming to you for advice and for wisdom. So thank you for spending this evening with us.
Good point.